Bakemonogatari at the start of this video.
Bakemonogatari.
I understand now why people get so mad at me for how I pronounce this show, because I also say Bakemonogatari, but like it's like it's like Bakemonogatari, like it's like meant to be said very differently from how English speakers say it. But he really like full said it. Like, if I'm gonna have to say this stupid name, I'm gonna just fucking go absolutely crazy with it. Bakemonogatari, like, whoa.
Well, it's a thing. It's not quite an action series, though it has that. It's not quite a solely supernatural series in the traditional sense, though it features that heavily. And it's also not quite a romantic comedy, though that depends on your definition of romance. So really...
Gary, how dare you compare that to anime as a Japanese colloquialism? That wasn't nearly so obnoxious. That was like, anime is a Japanese colloquialism. Like, it was like soothing and soft,
It's a thing. Adapted from the light novel of the same name by writer whose name I'm not going to attempt to butcher
Nishio Ishin
pronunciation of. And that was adapted back in 2009 by Studio Shaft, and its resident...
I wish he had just gone for it. I wish he had said, I'm about to butcher the pronunciation of, and then just tried his best. That would have been great.
Artiste, Chief Director Akiyuki Shimbo. Bakemonogatari is...
Did he say autist? Hold on.
Artiste.
I think he's trying to say artiste, but it sounds like he's saying autist.
Chief Director Akiyuki Shimbo. Bakemonogatari is a series and now an entire anime franchise that people have sworn by as one of their favorite anime since...
I appreciate... This is all of Utena, right? I think like 3 different like each saga of Utena or something. Shout out for that. You got Azumanga Daioh, Royal Space Force, The Wings of Honey Mize. Is this like a VHS or is this some kind of... Okay, this is probably like some kind of super fucking special DVD. Moribito. I know that's not... It's Haibane Renmei. Bamboo Blade? You own Bamboo Blade on DVD? All right. I don't even have that. Mushishi, but just one volume of it. All of fucking Fate Stay Night. Paranoia Agent, Yu Yu Hakusho, Bottle Fairy, I think? No, that can't be what that is. It's something Life. Fuck. Saito Life? Seiyu Life. Seiyu Life? I'm not sure what the fuck. Nazca, Suzumiya, Gankutsuo. I think that's like... It looks like kind of like the Kamichu box. I'm not sure. Clanad. These are real tiny icons. Hold on. Let me see if full screen helps. You got the big ass fucking... What the fuck? Place Farther Than the Universe poster. I can't tell what the fuck that is. Orange makes me assume Naruto. Okay, down here we got Planetes, Record of Lotus War, AD Police, which sucks. So far, all this has been good. By the way, this is all fine. None of this is anything shitty to have on your shelf. AD Police is shit. This looks like it says Dororo. I'm not sure. This look like the S. Cryed DVDs or something. Oh no, it's Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell. Okay, yeah. It's the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex DVDs. Scrapped Princess, Princess Tutu, Serial Experiments Lane, more Record of Lotus War, but a different version. Girl Who Leapt Through Time, super duper souped up version. I can't tell what those are from him blocking it too much. Pat Labor, a whole lot of Pat Labor Blu-rays. I can't quite tell what those are. All right.
its inception due to its interesting characters, unique visual style, and its plot. But largely, it's a series that I've previously avoided.
Caribou-kun, yo, Bottle Fairy. I've never actually seen it, but I actually have it on DVD because my aunt had it and sent me all of her anime DVDs at one point. None of which I watch because I never do actually watch them. That's why I stopped collecting DVDs. I don't watch them. I will not go to the effort of plugging it in. At some point, I was like, I cannot keep spending money on these things I don't use. But yeah, I do have Bottle Fairy somewhere. If you want it, if you don't have it and you want it, Shaves, I'll give it to you if we ever meet somewhere.
For a variety of reasons. Being an Aniplex property has actually made getting a copy of it stupidly expensive historically. A good chunk of the franchise's story is tied up in several films that have even worse availability in the West, and to be honest,
oh man, when people start talking about availability in the West, I'm just like, it really feels like a generational divide to me, where it's like, I understand that you're coming from the position of, like, you know, back when we used to have to collect DVDs, and so it like is like a point of pride. But like, I just imagine a 13-year-old hearing that and being like, I literally don't even comprehend what the fuck you're talking about. Like, what do you mean hard to find in the West? I literally can tab over and find it in 3 seconds. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Few exceptions, I found that any work with Akiyuki Shimbo attached to it gets more praise for being deep and meaningful than it actually deserves. But today, it's high time that I finally take a look at the series that's now over a decade old and see not only how it holds up compared to many of the shows that have followed in its wake, but also try to imagine how the me of...
This is the kind of thing that's going to get Shames in trouble for being like in the chat on my stream.
10 years ago.
I'm sorry. I'm
So,
sorry, Caribou-kun. I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen and others, my name is Arkada, and welcome to Glass Reflection, where today we're looking at Bakemonogatari. Let's jam. Bakemonogatari is a series I wouldn't necessarily describe as good. It's not a series I would actively recommend to people, nor is it one that I personally found engrossing as something.
I don't think he's going to spoil anything, but I will also say there are certain things that would suck to have spoiled about this, but not in the first show. Like, if he's only talking about the first season of Bakemonogatari, there's nothing really. It's pretty much a slice of life anime. Like, there are like twists at the end of each arc, but they're not really meaningful to spoil unless you already know what the arc's about. Like, they're all kind of like puzzles, you know.
To watch, but it is a series that is interesting. It has many elements to it that it wants to explore, and I can't say that it doesn't find unique ways to showcase these elements. But the show, to
I should say, they're all like word puzzles, but they're all Japanese word puzzles that are fucking not solvable if you don't know Japanese. So you're just gonna watch it unfold and go, "Oh, okay, that's what was happening."
Is a constant battle between two things: wanting to show how intelligent it actually is, while also showcasing how much of a pervert the main character can be. The series is a combination of character arcs involving supernatural elements, loosely strung together by connection to our protagonist, Araragi. Araragi is a half-human former vampire oddity who, while still having his humanity, also retains several...
Yeah, season 2 is definitely where there's stuff that, like, I wouldn't want you to know going into it, because it's legitimately shocking. Like, season 2 is like, oh, this is a story now, you know, like, this is like really trying to like have. And when I say season 2, I'm not talking about Kizu Monogatari either. I'm talking about Monogatari series, the second season, or whatever the fuck they called it. The release order of this is absolutely fucked. It doesn't make any sense.
Several vampiric abilities from his backstory, such as regeneration. And instead of realizing how dangerous and deadly interactions with the supernatural world...
It's funny too, because like, there's so many anime that people will ask, like, what order should I watch it in? And like 9 times out of 10, my answer is release order. If you want to watch Mobile Suit Gundam, watch the anime that is called Mobile Suit Gundam, and then watch the next one that came after that. If you want to watch Neon Genesis Evangelion, watch the anime that is called Neon Genesis Evangelion, and then watch the one that's called The End of Evangelion, and then watch the one that's called Rebuild of Evangelion. But with Monogatari, like, starting with Kizu Monogatari does make sense. Like, the story literally will make more sense if you start there. But it came out like after it came out like 50 episodes into the fucking show, you know? And it's not that it doesn't make sense to watch Kizu Monogatari like in release order. It's just that it feels if you're talking about the books went Bakemono then Kizumono. So like the Kizumono, backstory would have been right after season 1, and they started working on it right after season 1. They just took like 6 years to finish it. So they had also gone and made more of the show in the meantime under a different director. And so there's also this kind of stylistic divide where Kizu Monogatari feels more like Bakemonogatari, but then the rest of it kind of feels different because it's, the main director of the original show had been tied up in this movie the whole time. And then there's like, instead of making season, it's like, what, Bakemono, then Kizumono, then I can't remember. Oh, it's Nekomonogatari Black, then season 2, which starts with Nekomonogatari White, the sequel to Nekomonogatari Black. Then Hana Monogatari, then Tsuki Monogatari, which I haven't seen yet. This is where I've Hana Monogatari was the last one I watched. So I haven't seen Tsuki Monogatari. I haven't seen Owari Monogatari or Owari Monogatari season 2 or Koyomi Monogatari. Or I think there's another one now. I think I got them all that are out. Other than that, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. Did I skip season 2 in that No, I think I got them all on that, right? There's over 100 episodes of this fucking shit. And a lot of the times the later twists kind of undo the earlier twists. So like stuff that happens early in the story almost doesn't matter, once you get deep enough into it. But anyway.
Can be, and just walking away from it, he decides that despite not being an expert in supernatural dealings, he should take it upon himself to become chief exorcist of the area. Thus, he involves himself in many supernatural phenomena likely to get him killed, as long as it's a service to a woman in need. I've known for a long time that Bakemonogatari.
Yeah, I agree with Cole that like Kizu and Bake are both equally sensical starting points. It's just a question of, if you don't start with Kizu Monogatari, where do you slot it in? Because like nowhere specifically makes the most sense. I mean, release order is fine. Right after Bake is fine, but also before Bake is fine. Any of those would be good places to watch it. The only bad place to watch it would probably be last, because then you'll be like, oh, that's what Araragi and Hanekawa's deal is. Like,
Monogatari has been a staple, as it were, for the slew of anime about a protagonist whose sole job throughout.
Okay, part of the reason I think it doesn't make sense to watch it in release order is I don't think Nekomonogatari is as good unless you've seen Kizu Monogatari. Like, I didn't like Nekomonogatari Black when I watched it the first time, and Nekomonogatari White at the start of second season kind of redeemed it for me. But I think I would have had a way easier time with Nekomonogatari Black if I had known everything about Hanekawa that you know from Kizu, which again in the novels would have been the case. You would have already. Bakemonogatari barely tells you anything about Hanekawa. And then Kizu Monogatari heavily involves her. And then Nekomonogatari is entirely about her. So if you don't have that emotional connection to her from Kizumono, Nekomono feels like just kind of not the best introduction to who she is, to like give a fuck about the development she's having then, That's my take on it.
Throughout the series is to solve the problems of various female characters. While it is not the originator of this format by any stretch, because visual novel adaptations have been a thing.
And in fact, I will say that while Kizumono makes sense to watch before Bakemono, I do think watching Bakemono first is the most enjoyable experience, because again, that's how it was created, and I think Nisio scene rather. I think when he was creating Bakemonogatari, he wanted it to feel like there was all this baggage that the characters had coming into the story, and then he was gonna go explore that baggage in the next book. You know, like I think that was always part of the plan, was that you were supposed to be invested in these characters before you learned the backstory, because he wanted to present the characters. He wanted you to meet them as people who had already developed past the state that they are at the start of Kizu, and there's kind of like a dramatic irony of knowing who they're going to become as compared to who they are at the start. So I do think there's good reason in that sense to watch Kizu second.
Long before Monogatari came along. I don't think it's actually true to say.
Yes, Kizu was made into 3 movies. It's just one book, and the 3 movies are all like 50 minutes long or so. But they're gorgeous. They're just unbelievably gorgeous, and that's why they took so fucking long to make. Is they look incredible.
That Araragi as a protagonist is actually there to solve problems, even if that's what he sometimes ends up doing. The first arc of the series even takes great pains to specify this, with a famous line of the series stating that the only one who can solve the problems of these characters.
Yeah, Dean. I mean, this is why I don't talk about Monogatari anymore, is that like I'm really careful about who I'm trying to court with my videos. Like, who do I want to talk to? You know, who do I want to be arguing with? And like when it comes to Monogatari fans, like my opinion on Monogatari is like, isn't it a shame that it's so, you know, like how it is? Wouldn't it be nice if all this genius was applied to something else, you know? And that's obviously not going to be the point for the Monogatari fans. I'm sure Nisio himself is probably aged past this, you know? Like, these are books he wrote when he was in his 20s. The man's like in his 40s now. He's written plenty of shit since then. We could read newer Nisio books. Maybe figure out if he's changed or evolved or adapted at all.
Are the characters themselves. It's this inner reflection that the characters have to face, which makes the show worth watching as they wrestle with their internal.
The lolly stuff in Monogatari is on another level. It is deliberately like transgressively like in your face.
Problems and the more supernatural external results of that. But even then, I have to constantly question if anything actually gets solved. More often than not.
Jason Secret, if you want, you could send your request by way of just like buying one of my albums on Bandcamp or my magazine on Itch.io. That's how we've been organizing it. Otherwise, whenever I go to Itch.io, I go straight to Ellen's profile, which is really funny. But, you know, we had a request sent by Lapusha in by way of this, and then I don't think anybody's tried this method yet. I think I would get an email about it. I need to stay on that, you know, make sure I'm always checking the emails to. All right, nothing new has come in, but we still have quite a queue running right now.
In this first season, the root cause of any problem is not the issue that gets resolved. Instead, they only patch up the more obvious symptoms of the greater problem. Sanjo Gahara's home life.
Landon, this is exactly the problem we're talking about. No, stop it.
That caused her supernatural weight problems isn't really dealt with, only the weight issue itself. One could make the clear argument that Araragi was one of the major problems with Kanbaru to begin with, and Hanekawa's problems are less solved and rather just further repressed by Shinobu until, presumably, a later arc can finally deal with it. For the show's talk of having the heroines being the only ones that can solve their problems, there's plenty of unsolving to.
Lapusha, based on, I know that it's like $100 Australian, but like based on my rate of $150 per minute, and we watched like 45 minutes, and we also talked about it for like 2 hours between those two videos. They lasted like 2 hours. So I will ask that if you want me to watch the rest of the ones you said for more money, because I do feel like we got $64 worth there of that 2 hours that we were watching those. I hope that you feel the same way.
To be seen. And when things actually do get fixed, it is Araragi that resolves the situation. Well, sort of. Much of this initial season had me asking what his purpose actually is. He mostly just seems to be a ferryman of sorts, to guide our characters to Oshino, who ends up providing the solution more often than not that Araragi just acts upon, usually unsuccessfully. For a series that has the word story in the title, though, I actually found that the overall story is actually one of the least interesting things about it. By contrast, it's the individual stories that are much more potent entertainment. It reminds me a lot of why I like shows like Mushishi, with its taking of Japanese folklore and turning that into supernatural phenomena that the Mushi master Ginkgo attempts to solve or mitigate with his knowledge. Every arc of Bakemonogatari...
I think that's a fair comparison, and one that I would not have thought of. I tend to compare this show to like other Faust light novel type stuff. I'm sure probably other people have compared it to Mushishi, but I don't think that ever crossed my mind.
Monogatari brings in a new supernatural. It's not necessarily an original problem, as like Mushishi, there are plenty of references to myths and folklore. Because like, if somebody tried to tell me that Bakemonogatari was the originator of the monkey's paw, I'd look at them and laugh. But to be fair, Bake takes these tales and reimagines them into more modern settings. And that's one of the best things about the series. And then the show had to go be all sexual about it.
Oh no, not sex!
So...
whatever am I going to do? I hate sex.
There is a particularly negative discourse to be had when discussing Bakemonogatari.
I obviously cannot show some of this content due to YouTube restrictions, but feel free to use your imagination. But you already showed enough with that shot just earlier of Natako.
And it's more sexually charged content. Some people believe that the constant panty shots, naked women, and sexual harassment of underage...
Gary, I do think this is... I think there's certain anime fans who feel this way. Like, this was like the 4chan mentality back in the day, right? Like, yeah, fuck off, normie. You know, like, get filtered. And then it came to be where people want to justify and argue about it. You know, like, if I make an argument that I think that this show is like crass or perverse, and you say get filtered, normie, I'm like, yes, I have indeed been filtered. You are correct. You know. But if they're like, well, actually, the way that it presents it, if you really think about it, she's been dead for 17 years, so technically she's a 25-year-old ghost. That's not what the show's saying. All right? Like, I can see what the show is saying. I understand what it's saying. I understand why it's doing what it's doing. There's certain things that I used to do that I still understand why I did them. And I look back on it and I think this just enables the wrong people. It's just, I'm not saying I don't think that this show is funny. I just think that this show didn't need to empower what it accidentally empowers by trying to be funny. You know?
Characters are not really important to the plot necessarily, but are rather just jokes that are not to be taken seriously. That they are just the aspects that need to be included in order to make the series cater to a larger audience when its deeper themes would have lost them otherwise. Other people are of the mind that it's all intentional, and that the risque content is itself just a reflection of the main character's repressed desires, and it is absolutely essential for the development of the characters. It's a deconstruction of fan service in anime, they might say. There are also some people who say that the show is not sexual at all. That is an opinion I've seen. And really, I think that if that is one you hold, you might need to get your eyes checked. Possibly. But this is why coming up with my own take hasn't been easy, mostly because I see both the truth and flaws to many of these arguments. So here's how I choose to look at it. You can say that Senjo Gahara's walking around naked has some secret meaning, how her comments about clothes being too heavy given her weightless nature point to something more. And you might be right about that, but I'm not one to say that.
You are definitely right about that. The entire fucking show is double entendres. It doesn't mean it's good. Like, that doesn't, I feel like we have this thing when we talk about shows where, like, we think that deep equals good. Deep doesn't equal good. You can be deep and be dog shit. I think Ergo Proxy is really deep. I think it's boring as fuck most of the time. It has like a couple cool episodes, and then most of it's just fucking boring. And it is deep. It is saying a lot. So is the fucking Bible. Like, it's boring. I don't want to read some boring shit just because it's deep, you know? Lots of stuff's deep. You got to be more than just deep.
That someone's view of the scene is wrong by not picking up on that. It's an issue that I have when writers are being vague about something. If the meaning is not explicitly clear, then really whatever meaning that the watcher takes from it is just as valid as the next. I don't believe that anyone looking at this scene who just writes it off as fan service is necessarily wrong in that assumption, nor do I disagree with any essays that people have written on this scene's hidden message about the characters. We all have different takeaways, and that leads us to all having different opinions on the series itself, which is great. If we all had the same opinion, I'd probably be out of the job. So yes, there are plenty of sexually charged representations and scenes in Bakemonogatari, and this first season doesn't even have the scene. And Monogatari fans know exactly what scene I'm talking about. However you interpret these scenes is entirely up to you.
Fucking, I agree with the take. The Bible is peak, though, is hilarious. Ghost Lightning tried to get me to read the Bible too. He was like, you just gotta throw on like some fucking Megadeth or some Slayer or Metallica and read this shit because it's crazy. But I can't get past like the diction of it. Like, I don't like when a book is just unsatisfying to read. Like, if I just get frustrated by trying to like read the words, then I don't want to read it, you know? That's why I like pop media. I watch YouTube videos where it's just like somebody in like regular parlance speaking to me is the easiest way for me to care about something, you know? How can you even get to the Bible without reading the Torah first? That's funny. The Torah is like in the Bible, right? Isn't the Torah just the Old Testament or something? And where am I totally wrong about this? Trixie will read the Bible for money. We did it before. It was fun. That is true. I will do most things for money. But I do think it has to be a fair amount. I hope Lapusha doesn't feel too bad, but I can't accept the conversion rate thing because ultimately it's about how much money and time I'm making, you know? I have to move on to the next person who will actually pay more. Because I gotta make that money. And I do request stream for the money. I wouldn't watch Garkada for no reason. Although I would have watched that last animation that Lapusha paid for no reason. That was fucking incredible. That show was literally goated. This video, I will have forgotten every single word this man said by the time I'm done. I mean, so far, nothing he said has clung to my brain whatsoever. He has not said one interesting sentence in this video. This is like the least interesting Bakemonogatari review I've ever seen, possibly. So that's astonishing in and of itself. And this was only 5 years ago. Why were you reviewing Bakemonogatari in 2019? Why did this even happen? What was the fucking point? Holy shit.
To you, but they are important because honestly, how you react to them and whether or not you enjoy them is definitely going to be like the biggest indicator of your enjoyment level for the series as a whole. Like, I don't necessarily like them and found that more often than not, it led me to an even worse opinion of Araragi as the series progressed. But, you know, sneaking up on an underage girl only to grope her and then question why she fights back will have that effect. But there are times when I did feel like a meaning could be taken from it. If only
I did enjoy the Brad Neely version of you know, the Bible, the one where yeah.
Goes with that. Wanted a fuck to death pile of burning caca. The angels went on to say, take your family and flee from this city. Whatever you do, don't look back. That's the way God wants it. I don't know why, dude. Just don't look back. So Lot and his family got together their bowls and towels and furs and leather pieces and posters of Abraham and sheep and important rocks and all the other precious valuables, and they left the city. Just after they passed the city limits, they heard all sorts of terrible noise and felt heavy heat on their backs. They ran like goats on fire. Lot's wife stopped concentrating for 1 second. Just for 1 freaking second, she let her guard down, and she turned around and glanced at the towering blaze. And in 1/2 of a split fucking second, she turned into a pillar of salt. Lot and
I think about the phrase 1/2 of a split fucking second probably every day of my life since watching this video. 1/2 of a split fucking second.
the show didn't flaunt its fan service so much to make me tired of it. It's the difference between opening a bag of chips and then just eating a handful versus
I will take music requests, although I will say we have like quite a bit queued up already. So, you know, if you are going to make requests now, lock in. You will be here for a while.
just downing the whole bag. Moderation is key. The show's lack of it at times is what ultimately made it a harder watch for me than it could have been. And I'm sure there are plenty of people down in the comments.
Yeah, you little fuckers, ruining my life, talking about me every day just because I put myself in front of you every day. You sons of bitches.
Now mentioning how I watched the show wrong or how I just don't understand, but can't win them all. I said at the start of the video that Bakemonogatari is a series that is very hard to recommend. And that's an opinion.
Yes. I don't think you should. Let me put it this way. If you are somebody who should see Bakemonogatari, you will. No one needs to tell you to. And in fact, if someone tells you to watch it, stay away from them. Stay away from somebody who tells you to watch Bakemonogatari. They're not well.
That shouldn't be controversial either. I'd like to hope. And I'm not just talking about the show's fan service, though that is a huge turnoff for many, but just how most of the rest of the show is presented. There are entire episodes that are not much more than 2 characters having a long and involved conversation about highly detailed subjects.
That's true. Rosin Maiden did get mentioned because Dean the is also a Rosin Maiden, and I don't know if it came up between you two before.
That only loosely tie into the plot events. And for many, that's not something that's
Love the bamboo in this shot.
easy to follow. It has a very Seinfeld nature to the conversations, and one.
You know what? I actually think that's a pretty apt comparison. I do actually think Seinfeld is a pretty fair comparison to Nisio Seed's writing style.
Could largely describe them as just circular conversations about nothing. But at least Seinfeld had a layer of humor to that nothingness.
It's not fair to say they're about nothing, though, because in this case, they are very much about something, and that is the point. Like, it's conversations that sound like they're about nothing until you realize that actually all of them were just kind of circling something that is at the heart of it. And then when they finally address that thing, that's when the arc ends.
To make the dialogue more interesting. Like, you almost need to rewatch some scenes in Bakemonogatari multiple times just to get a grasp on where and why a conversation takes a particular turn, which only slows down the experience. Only then to have to stop the experience entirely in order to read all the text. Not only are most of the
Landon, I hope you know that, like, you are your whole existence is the, like, toothbrushing scene of my content. Like you being here is the toothbrushing scene of what I do. And I'm all about it. Never stop. Never stop filtering for me, Landon.
Conversations very word heavy, but most scenes are constantly overlaid with smash cuts to text-filled scenes with descriptions, inner monologues,
Oh no.
and the
Wait, Mopu, you weren't here at the start. Let me just run it back real quick. We're at 10:35. You got to hear this.
Bakemonogatari is
Oh man. Oh boy.
of the conversations very word heavy, but most scenes are constantly overlaid with smash cuts to text-filled scenes with descriptions, inner monologues, and the like that are never on screen long enough to read them properly. Watching on a computer is almost essential to be able to pause quickly enough to catch the text and then read it. But that just
It really is. Now that I've heard it 3 times, I can't stop hearing it in my head. Like I've committed it to memory. Bakemonogatari. I can't do it. I can hear it in my mind. I can't replicate it. It's too specific. It's like really, really specific. How weird and wrong it is.
Slows everything down more. And I'd never say to skip the text though, because all of it is purposeful, and it might just be, easier to read in Japanese for Japanese readers in order to get the gist of it as it quickly passes on. But
Yeah,
I could never get that.
The weirdest part is that this came out in 2019. This is like the most generic imaginable review of Bakemonogatari on like its 10th anniversary. Is that what he was going for? Like it was literally a fucking decade old. It's not even relevant in 2019. Why did this happen? Who talked him into this? Was this like a Patreon request? Are we going to find out this was a Patreon request or something? Like
the English translated text. It might just be subliminal, and if that's the argument you're going to go for, sure, but I feel like it's there for a purpose, and I should be able to read it. This whole experience just exemplifies the kinds of things you need to be okay with in order to get...
Okay, real talk about this. Y'all. Sonny, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to single you out like this, but when y'all come in here and tell me that 4chan is dead or make jokes about 4chan, all I can help but think is y'all are really checking in on 4chan, huh? Because I would have not heard about it if multiple people didn't come to me and go, 4chan's down. And I'm like, 4chan was up? Like, what are you fucking talking about? Who cares? No, I cannot bring 4channel back. It doesn't need to be back.
To get the most out of this series, and also the type of mindset you need to be in before even starting the first episode. If you're not prepared enough for that, then there's a good chance that you might come away with an even less impressed outlook on the series than I did. It's probably why I took so long in actually attempting to tackle the series.
Here we go. Caribou-kun figured it out. He did 5 classic reviews in December based on votes for a few years. So, okay. So he's doing like, because Anthony Fantano every December will do 5 classic album reviews. The problem is that Arkada's whole thing is very like designed by, not even committee is the wrong word. It's like he goes out and finds what people's opinions are and tries to, like, he is trying to be generic. It's weird. Like, that is actually part of his goal, I think. Is like he finds out what everybody is saying and tries to represent all of the general viewpoints. So he's like, I don't know why. I don't know like what's the appeal of that other than I guess people watch it. He's got 500,000 subs, so I don't know why I'm acting like I know better, but I've never seen what is he like getting out of like reviewing Bakemonogatari, like based on his audience voting for it, other than a video. I don't know. I'm not gonna act like I've never just watched anime for the sake of getting to talk about it, but this whole approach is strange to me. But again, I don't have 500,000 subscribers, so I don't know why I am questioning it. Send a couple songs to Discord. I don't mind waiting at all. All right, thank you, Alex. We'll get to there. First, we got to get through this
as well, because I knew of all of this years ago. watching Bakemonogatari and then moving on to
He says it differently every time too. That time it was Bakemonogatari. That's actually when you watch Grappler. Like if you watch all of Grappler Baki, you are having a Bakemonogatari of your own.
the rest of the
And also the closed caption says Bark Monogatari.
Monogatari series is a commitment. Like I said, I would try to imagine myself 10 years ago and how he might have enjoyed this series, but I have a feeling that
This man is Road Circus security shoes, bruh. Call back to earlier stream. Oh, I didn't mean to click on that, but let's see what it says. Yeah. Well, and he ran into this problem. I think he changed how he was doing things a little bit after this one review he did of it was Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, where like he raised like negative points about the show that people didn't really like agree with or something, and he ended up, I think it was that like it sounded like he was really praising it and barely had any negative points, but then he gave it kind of a low score because he scores based on his feelings, but he gives the review based on like consensus opinions, so people were just like confused about it. That's how I remember this happening. I could have had not that much perspective on the situation because again, I was not like following it. I just remember him having like an odd controversy around the way he had handled his Nozaki-kun review. Bukake Monogatari all over Aranagi's sisters. Landon. I mean, I'm trying to think of what's the meanest, not too mean thing I can say in response to that. Landon is a problem that takes care of himself with drinking. No, that's actually really dark. I just kind of went right for the throat with it. Whatever. It's funny.
I would have liked it even less then. I just had a big problem with harem tropes back in the day. And while it's still a sticking point that I have kept, I'm not as harsh on it as I once was. Like, I still don't want to watch Love Hina again, even though I can appreciate it for what it was and how it affected the medium, but it doesn't mean that I have to enjoy it, which is really a summary of my thoughts on Bakemonogatari as a whole. Bakemonogatari is a visually impressive series at times, and I can appreciate it for its rich characters and many of the themes and takes on the supernatural. But that's as far as I go. As for the rest, well, it's indeed a thing, I guess. And so, with all of that in mind, after meticulously considering my thoughts on the categories of story, characters, animation, sound, and my own personal enjoyment, after which, not inflicting the rating with possibly needless amounts of fans
I love Landon.
service because I respect it more than that, has me awarding Bakemonogatari with the rating of...
All right. I want to know what you all think he's going to score on Monogatari. Based on this review he just gave, where he said almost nothing. He said it's basically a show about nothing. There might be some depth to it, but I didn't notice. It's really perverted, and maybe that won't bother you, but it did bother me. Now, based on how it seems like he feels about this show, I would think like a 4. Like, I did not enjoy this. This was not for me. This is clearly not my kind of show. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't really get the jokes. You know, I could see that it's probably good, but it's not my show. Based on what I heard, I would have given this a 4. All right. Now let's see what you all think, because I'm obviously being unrealistic. So let's see. Your takes are 10, 7, 7, 10. No score. 7. He's going to say 8 because he's a dumbass and doesn't know what an 8 is. Bakemonogatari review ChatGPT. This is before ChatGPT, though. Although not far enough before ChatGPT for it to make sense. Sounds like he's going to get a 7, 7.5. Light to decent 6. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he goes... I'm thinking that his view of it is less than a 7 is kind of negative. So I'm thinking he goes 6. Like, being realistic. 4 is what he should give based on what he said. 10, 7, 66.6. I don't know if he does decimals. 7 unscorable. Ooh, that would be interesting if he takes that route. Damn out of 10. 6 or 7. No world he doesn't give this a positive score, a minimum 7. Sewer icon. Bunny girl out of 10. Bunny girl was a 4 out of 10. Lamau. 5, 7. Nah, 7. Bunny girl was it for the gifts and nothing else. This is so funny knowing what he gives it, lol, and how you're measuring it. Okay. Well, everybody else was saying between 6 and 10. 5, well, the lowest I saw from y'all was 5. I said 4 would be reasonable.
Okay, let's back up a second and talk about.
Uh-oh. We didn't even get an answer yet. Shit, we're backing up a second. Oh, I should have noticed there were 4 minutes left in the video.
Something because people know that I have ratings that I like to give shows. There's skip it if I hate it and found it deplorable. Watch it or stream it if it's interesting enough to see, but not absolutely amazing. Buy it because even if you can't own it physically, it has enough to it to be worth having it on your shelf, either physically or digitally. And finally, there's the rating of Certified Frosty, a rating for, and I quote, the best of the best, or those shows too important to ignore.
So he's got like a whole other rating scale of his own.
It's that last line, that last caveat to the Certified Frosty rating that has me a little bit conflicted with how I want to rate Bakemonogatari.
So he feels like he's supposed to give it Certified Frosty, but he doesn't want to.
Today, because I didn't necessarily enjoy the experience, but
just
I
fucking
can see
say
where
it
others
sucks.
would,
Just say it fucking sucks. Just say I hated it and it sucked. It was uncomfortable. It was weird. I hated the writing. The characters are fucking dumb. I don't like it. Just say that because that would be honest. And it's also true.
Normally would have me giving it a stream it rating accordingly. But given the show's reputation, even though I would never have considered such a thing 10 years ago, it does qualify as an anime that one might say is too important to ignore. But for the microcosm that is this video, I don't think that the solution is an easy one because it requires a bit more thought than I currently have time for in order to complete this video. Really what I need to do is just rejig the rating scheme to account for shows that are either slowly becoming classics or shows that are important to the anime lexicon, even if I don't particularly find them entertaining. So when I eventually do fix the rating system, maybe by just calling it a classic rating or something, then Bakemonogatari.
Swan Cookie, I do hope, I really unironically hope it's obvious that that's the bit. Like, I take as long as possible to watch every video so that you get your money's worth. I hope. Unless people really just want me to get through the videos as fast as possible, but I don't know why you would pay for that. I don't know why you'd pay to watch a video other than mine.
Monogatari will fit under that. But for now, it's just getting a watch it rating, as it's hard to recommend given its content, but still neither irredeemable or not worth watching. Now, since the series is available from Aniplex, it has been a bit of a pain to own. Their box set for Bakemonogatari was one of their first in North America, and it's never dropped in price since then, really. So even while later entries of the Monogatari series are a bit more reasonably priced, for Aniplex anyway, this first...
You're right, Caribou-kun, but at the same time, there's not a gradient with Fantanos. With the classic reviews, he says, like, the implication is it is a 10 out of 10. Like, he has said that, you know, I'm not giving it a 10 because it's meaningless to do so, because when he grades an album, he's grading it as, like, a consumer product. Because, like, he's grading it based on, like, I listened to it for this week. You know, classic album is like, well, now I've heard this for 10 years, and it's, like, it's transcended the rating scale at that point, you know?
First entry is the outlier that makes it difficult to own. Thankfully, though, it is available for streaming over on Crunchyroll. But Aniplex never gave Crunchyroll the Blu-ray rips, so it's probably one of the worst ways to watch it. Not only is the quality capped at 480p, but as with so many other Shaft shows, there are plenty of changes made to the Blu-rays of the series that were not in the original TV
Hello, Z.
broadcast. So owning and watching the Blu-rays would be preferable, but it is a significant financial commitment.
Oh,
as far as
Luna.
alternate anime recommendations,
You have got to watch the anime we watched earlier, the independent one. I don't know if you've already seen it, but you would really love it.
my answers are somewhat obvious. First, my teen romantic comedy
Good night, Aggie9.
Snafu is an example of a series that does similar things as Bakemonogatari, but is far more palpable for most people. I personally found it far more entertaining, but it doesn't have any of the supernatural elements that I actually enjoyed from Bake. Which leads me to my second recommendation of Rascal Dreams of Bunny Girl Senpai. That series took what I liked about Bakemonogatari and then just fixed a lot of the things that I didn't like. But I'll get into that a bit more tomorrow, because you voters decided that for this year's Review Week of Awesome, I should review them back to back. Oh boy. And lastly, I do want to give a very special thank you to my patrons who not only support my work in general, but who also allow me to do what I do. I love and appreciate you all.
He made you
Specifically,
so
though,
mad
as I
you
like to do, I
stopped
want to be
drawing.
particular.
I straight up tuned all that last part out. I couldn't. There's a certain amount of like a person could say a certain number of words that don't mean anything before my brain won't listen to them anymore and like turns them into like just a part of the music. And at some point I forgot that was like a guy talking. I was like, that's just like I'm just listening to that that was in the background there, and like, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he was just kind of rapping, you know, not necessarily my favorite rapper, but he was back there rapping. Okay, what's the next in line of the things we gotta watch? Holy moly, that was an experience. Don't watch the Monogatari series. Okay, I know I've got, what's the earliest? I want to do these in order. We already watched Corona's new video, which you should all watch if you haven't seen it. We watched Glass Reflection. Thank you once again. I enjoyed that. I know you all didn't, but I had a good time. Right, The Twin Stars, directed by Ryutaro Nakamura. This is exciting. Hopefully, this doesn't get the stream taken down. It's on YouTube, so. You know, I had a feeling that Twin Star Exorcist would come up. I wasn't expecting that I had a rant about Ryutaro Nakamura that would come up. Am I going to have to type in the goddamn URL? I guess I am. At least it's a short one. This video isn't available anymore. How the hell did I get sent it then? Did I type it right? Nope, I typed it wrong. I missed an I. There we go. Hey! Ghetto Daze. I hope you're here, Caleb. I hope I'm